Hi folks, Will at LR Workshop. Welcome to part 2 of the video about my visits to see the Grenadier at Goodwood. If you haven't seen the part 1 already, then the link is in the description. In this video, I'm going to be answering the questions about where you can buy one when they become available, what is the warranty, how do we get parts, and what of the 14 things video I published last year have they actually achieved, and to sum up, would I buy one? Let's get into it. What they said about testing was 1.4 million of the 1.8 million kilometres have been done so far, so that even though they've only recently announced their testing regime, they've pretty much done most of it already. And Jim Radcliffe, at least as of last Saturday, Jim Radcliffe was in Iceland with one of the prototypes himself, testing it with some potential clients, rattling around in Iceland, some salmon fishing or something like that. They said he's been very directly involved in many aspects. He does have a lot of credibility with using vehicles in kind of harsh environments. And there's many things that have actually been changed on the vehicle because of his input. He's kind of got the last kind of say on a lot of stuff. Even to the extent that the two prototypes that were at Goodwood, the one that was charging up the hills, had different components on than the one we got to see, all because of what Jim Radcliffe had been saying to the development teams. One of the test drivers there, he's just come on board, and we were speaking to him a bit, to test the Grenadier in the UK. He has 5 Camel trophies under his belt, and also has done a lot of military vehicle testing, so these guys know what they're talking about. They've just bought some 79 Land Cruiser double cabs, funnily enough. They've brought them to the UK, and they're going to be testing them. Why they're doing that now instead of like a year or two ago, I'm not entirely sure, or what exactly they're going to be comparing against. But that's quite interesting, actually. In some instances as well, they've also been testing with double the payload capacity. They're expecting that people will overload the vehicles, so that's really nice to see. That's a typical engineering technique, is that you don't design it to fail at its rated load. You design it for bigger than its rated load, so that it's got the longevity and the durability. October time, there's going to be UK Roadshow. They're going to allow more people to get onto test drives, which will be very interesting. I'm looking forward to that. Apparently a team of people have spent an entire year just on optimising the gearbox shifting. And in any case, the Goodwood drivers were told basically not to gun it up the hill, just take it for a leisurely kind of pootle up the hill. I've had some contact from a few subscribers of mine who were going on test drives this week, and it turned out that the prototype that was charging up the hill at Goodwood is the prototypes that was doing the test drives. Apparently it was the second vehicle off the production line. Interesting. They said that so the feedback they gave me, they said the engine performed pretty effortlessly, plenty of torque, good engine braking. Hill descent control wasn't working on this prototype though, so that was just off the engine. And the gear changes were hardly noticed. The off-road course they put the vehicle around wasn't difficult enough to require axle lockers. They had the centre diff locked in though, and there wasn't any wading. But it was steep in places, rocky. Take from that what you will. But one of the big things is you don't bang your head when you're off-roading as you're far enough away from the doors. Good to know. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty. This was the really interesting stuff. There was an after-sales manager there who I probably spent most of my time talking to. This is a particular penchant of mine, as what the experience is going to be like as a future owner. We will be able to order the Grenadier from their website when it becomes available. We can do that. We will be able to order online. We will be able to collect it from a dealership, and they're aiming to also do deliveries to your house. Get it delivered to a house or to a warehouse like they do with Teslas, and you go and pick it up. The dealer network is pretty much going to be all and any dealers they can get into. It's likely to be BMW because of the relationship they have, but also agricultural, basically anywhere else they can get a deal. Anywhere that will sell these things on their behalf is what they're aiming for. The warranty will be 3 years. Now, this is where I started to draw. As a DIY mechanic that likes to fix my Defender, this is where I got particularly interested. Right, listen to this. The parts diagrams and workshop manuals will be available online for free to anyone. All you have to do is register an account and wait for this, right? The parts diagrams are going to be interactive 3D exploded diagrams. Zoom around, will they manipulate the vehicle? That is like next generation stuff. That is awesome. The great thing about having all this stuff free, and this is what I said in my 14 things video last year, one of the key things I wanted. If this is free and you have to pay a subscription to get access to this information, that means that every independent garage in the entire world can essentially learn and fix this vehicle on your behalf if you don't want to do it yourself. You're not going to get locked into some expensive contracts and what have you. That is just impressive. I love the way they're doing this differently. When it comes to parts, we will be able to order genuine parts from their website and get it delivered to our house. That is awesome. Or we can get it sent to the dealer if we want to use a dealer for fixing stuff. I told them, please don't put a massive markup on the parts. Don't let the wholesalers get in there, or they'll drive down the prices, and therefore the quality goes down. The reputation of the Grenadier will hit the bottom, like it has with Land Rovers. I reiterated my point. I'd pay 150 quid for a power steering plant that was genuine quality, but probably not 450. We don't need that much of a markup. Another really interesting thing, it is their ambition to be able to honour the warranty of the vehicle if genuine parts are fitted by us as end users, not only the dealership. So we can buy a part, fit it ourselves, and they will honour the warranty. It won't invalidate the warranty if we fit a part. They really want to get to that stage. They're not promising it, but they really want to get to that stage where they can allow that. The challenge for them is that they're using a lot of OEM parts from different manufacturers, and the OEM warranties aren't as long as Ineos's. So, for example, the auto gearbox from ZF, it's got a 2-year warranty. So if you get any problems in year 3, Ineos would have to fund that. Hopefully they can pull this off, but it really, really, really depends, based on the business case, the numbers, how expensive it's going to be for them. One of the other challenges they have with this is that some parts these days have to be legally traceable. Things like airbags and also emissions now following Dieselgate. They have barcoded parts that if there are recalls, there has to be a verifiable trace from that part leaving a warehouse and getting fitted to a vehicle with a specific VIN number and the old part being discarded. That has to be verifiable. And how you do that when people are fitting things on their driveway, they've got to overcome that. I think it'd be quite easy to overcome. You basically just don't sell those parts direct to a consumer, deal with the recalls in a dealership. So that was something they were having to think about, but I think there's ways around that. I wouldn't mind going to a dealership for a recall like that. I don't particularly want to work on an airbag, if I'm honest. That's fine by me. It's going to have over-the-air updates. Hopefully it's not going to scrape our personal data and sell it, but we shall wait and see. We asked if there was going to be built-in obsolescence, and they said no. But I guess they'd hardly say yes, would they? But there we go. They're also trying to find a way that us as owners can report problems we encounter during the warranty period. Not just traditionally, it would have been from dealers. And what happens is, I was told dealers tend to bunch up all their warranty claims at the end of the month, or when they need a bit of extra revenue, they bunch them up that way, which delays kind of for weeks or potentially months when warranty issues start coming through, and when the Ineos can actually start doing something about it. So they're trying to find a way where they can allow us as owners to report problems that we encounter. We did ask if the parts diagrams and workshop manual would be on the onboard system on the screen. The guy was genuinely impressed with that idea, and he said no one in Ineos had thought of it. They'd had like whiteboards, brainstorming, blank sheet of paper, and apparently no one had come up with it. I don't know if he was just humouring us, but anyway, he's going to suggest it. I think that would be a win. I did say last year I didn't want it on the vehicle. I write it on my phone, but to be honest, it's just a bit of a backup. It would not. I think I've changed my mind. It wouldn't be nice. Would be nice for it to be there, even if it's out of date. As soon as it's on there, it's still better to have something with some reference to a part. You can then find that part online, and if it's got a superseded part number, you'll still be able to find it, and it's all specific and relevant to that vehicle. The markets. Now, this is really interesting for me. We were probably all hoping that the Grenadier, at least I was, the Grenadier was going to be the next 300 TDI rest of the world's pet defender. It won't be. I probably came to terms with that about 4 or 5 months ago. There did seem to be limited knowledge amongst the staff that were there of the fact that you could still buy a 1HZ 70 series Land Cruiser. You can still buy it. You have to be somewhat of a preferred customer, and you have to be the right market, Africa, those sort of places. But you can still get them. So that basically means, a mechanically injected Bush vehicle for Africa, if you will. They weren't aware that you could still get a mechanically controlled 70 series Land Cruiser. So it kind of shows you that they've not really paid attention to that market at all. They're not going to go for the big fleets like the UN. They are trying to tap up lots of smaller fleets at the moment in the UK, sort of less than 10 vehicles, as potential customers rather than going for the big fleets. They explained why they're not going after the 70 Series 1XZ because 70% of their market, they said, is the US and the UK. Just those two countries. You don't need rest of the world spec in those markets. And that's 70% of it. So it just shows you they're not trying to build like a Bush vehicle. I think it will do fine in Africa. I think it'll do all right. There's lots of other modern vehicles running around that continent. And this thing is going to be durable. I'm pretty sure this thing is going to be durable enough to handle the continent, handle the rough stuff, just like the 70 Series Land Cruiser can do as well. In the future, they're going to be looking at how they can tap into the military market. So whether that means, slightly rougher, rawer versions of the Grenadier will come out, I don't know. I don't know if the diesel is going to go to the US. Can't see why it wouldn't. But, I mean, the US love their petrols. But I don't specifically know. I think the release of the Rivian, you've got to remember, if we're all interested in the Grenadier, the release of the Rivian could cause problems because the Rivian's starting to come out, I think, around about now, and that is like next generation. No matter what you say about the Grenadier, it is still old technology in terms of the drivetrain and propulsion system. The Rivian, it could potentially be a big problem in the US market next year. I didn't hear any changes to price. We still expect it to be $45,000, including VAT for the general public, about $40,000 for businesses. It may be some adjustment on it either way, but we just don't know. I can't imagine they would sell it for less, having given that price now. Their job is basically to build the hype and the desirability to justify that price between now and when people start ordering next March. So we put in reservations from October, put down a refundable deposit, orders next March with the final specs. Deliveries around about next July. That's the way it's going to go down. Final thoughts. There was a lot of interest in this vehicle compared to the Tesla sitting next to it. 5 years ago, that Tesla people would have been all around that Tesla, but this thing was attracting people left, right, and centre. There was a young guy walked past with his mates, and he was like, "Oh look, there's a Defender with a new bonnet." A lot of their staff standing around, some of the staff there were contractors actually. Their job is to introduce people and talk about cars to the public, so they were kind of hired for this event. They were quite polished. Some of the actual employees, the people working in the background with the vehicle, they're very open, interested to listen, and they're keen on doing things differently, which is very refreshing. They've got this dialogue, and they are open to ideas when we talk to them. Of the 14 things I mentioned that I wanted last year in my video that seemed to go a bit viral, I haven't counted which ones, but certainly in terms of parts, maintenance, purchasing, they are very much matched up with my expectations and my desires. They aren't using any OEM parts from Defenders or 70 Series I can see, other than the electrical connector I saw. But the main stuff's all different axles and chassis and braking and that kind of stuff. And there's a few things they've done that I asked for as well, but I can't say specifically at this stage. So what I would say is get yourself on a test drive, get yourself to an event, a roadshow, get underneath it. That's when you really, don't just take my word for it, go and look at it yourself. I have no idea when I'll be able to drive one. I'm not in the inner circle just yet. They're being very cautious about what they're releasing, but I've been fully ready to deep dive into the details of this vehicle for a long time, so it was brilliant for me. That's why I travelled on an 18-hour round trip to go and see this vehicle for three hours. It's great to kind of put some more flesh on the bones. Real question is, would I buy one? Yes, this thing will not break. They said that they're expecting people to keep it for a long time, and that's nice to hear. Although, would I buy one? That is that question. I think the real question for me, though, is if I bought one, would I end up getting rid of my Defender? Comparing this to the Defender that we all know and love, the Defender is a pile of shit. And I said that as a troglodyte Luddite Defender owner who started using these vehicles overseas, loved their simplicity, the fact that I can fix it myself. As I said before, this Grenadier will be the thing that will bring me into the modern age. It's not too technical. I can see how I can fix it. it's desirable, it's better than Defender in so many ways. I mean, when we think about modern's got a different connotation for people depending on your perspective. Some people, modern means erosion of personal freedoms, the ever-advancing advance of technology for no good reason. I would say this is not that. This is modern in a good way. It's just going to work. So, one thing I think about is if I owned one, how would I continue my relationship I have with my Defenders with this vehicle? Would I have to work on it? If it never broke down, would it lose its appeal? People say that about, people on Land Rovers don't call maintenance, they call, replacing parts actually maintenance. It's what people believe, whereas 70 series Land Cruiser owners don't, their maintenance is like change the oils and don't ever replace anything else. So I'm interested to see what this thing could do to the Defender market. So if people were holding back on seeing this and replacing their Defender because having seen the new Defender they weren't interested, I think they would totally buy this. But then once you bought this, why would you ever go back to a Defender? Could it just destroy the Defender market? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, owning the Defender, having to work on it, fix it, improve its shortcomings is part of the appeal of owning the Defender, I think. This thing's basically the 70 series Land Cruiser that we've never seen in the UK. I'm confident that it'll just work and it'll do what it's supposed to. That is really appealing for a lot of people, particularly, the demographic of Land Rover owners tends to be older. People of that age tend to not want to have to lie under a vehicle, and fix stuff anymore. So there's probably a lot of people that are very interested in buying this vehicle to replace a Defender as a daily drive or as a main vehicle, I think. So I have no problem in buying one, basically. I think they'd be fine. Would I buy one? I've answered that question. Will I buy one? That's something I have to think about. I said I wouldn't buy an electric vehicle because I've already got 2 vehicles. I don't need a third one. Even though I want to be part of that electric vehicle experiment, this is also an experiment I'd like to be a part of. So the draw for buying one is actually quite strong. Got to think about that next year. There we go. Love to hear your comments. Please leave your comments below. Subscribe in case I get to see this thing again in the future. But in the meantime, I'll be pottering away on my Rust Bucket Defenders, putting out more videos about those. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.